Rob Gilliland, a member of the Daytona Beach City Commission, in studio with us today on WNDB. Commissioner, thanks for coming in. It's good seeing you.
Good to be here again.
There's a lot going on, and we're going to try to take these things one at a time. First, and the timing is perfect. It looks like the city may need to follow suit like the county is to taxes may go up because of elevated values. Is that what I'm seeing?
So we've got our new construction number, which is going to be $600,000 or $700,000. We're probably going to go maybe where I think to see us is probably about a 2 or 3% increase. I try and kind of tag it to CPI every year. Something that people can understand. Our costs go up about 5% every year, but we also get more efficient with everything that we do. And we do have the new construction money. So the county's looking at a fairly substantial increase, I think about 6 or 7%.
Yes.
I certainly am not going to support anything up in that range, but something down, near rollback, but probably just slightly above is I think where we'll probably end up.
How does this work with Save Our Homes where you can't have more than a 3% increase, is it?
That is correct. Your assessed value from last year can only go up by 3%, which means your taxes can only go up by 3%. And what happens is when we, Daytona Beach being, a very transitory community, lots of renters, lots of apartment complexes, and then certainly the business community, let's not forget them. When you start going above 3%, those are the people you're hurting. So it's always been kind of a sore spot for me that, you start going above, that threshold, and the folks that are getting hurt are the people that are creating jobs and paying wages in your community, and the people who can least afford to pay it.
So how does this work? If you're going to let it go up 3%, you got the 3% cap, so you meet the legal limit. How is the county going to let it go to 6 or 7%?
Renters and businesses are going to pay it.
Wow.
Yeah. Homesteaded properties, they'll pay 3%. Everybody else out there that's in an apartment or a rental home or if you're a small business, you're the one who's going to get hit.
Oh, well, which will mean increased rents and everything else along the way.
Absolutely.
Okay. Is the city, I know that there's infrastructure needs, but where's the big things that are needed by the city right now? We've heard what the county is saying. What is the city saying?
So it's very confusing because you got to look at who's responsible for the infrastructure. So, pretty much all of the water and sewer infrastructure within Daytona Beach is the responsibility of Daytona Beach. But we generally pay for that with water sewer impact fees. That fund is relatively healthy, and we've done a good job. When Kelly White was on the commission, she campaigned, lobbied the commission to create a repair and replacement fund, which we did, so that when we do get big ticket items, we've got the money to actually go out and make those fixes. When you get into roads, it gets a little more complicated because when you start looking around Daytona Beach, you've got things that are federal and state, like A1A, US1, Nova. You got things that are county, like LPGA, Williamson, Clyde Morris. So ultimately they're the responsible party. We try and partner with them as we can, but certainly with our budget's less than a quarter of what theirs is. We're not going to be in a position where we can put the kind of funding into things that they can.
I want to move to the subject of LPGA right away. And I heard last night where the deal with the Chinese conglomerate is not dead. But I thought it was dead because didn't I hear you say they packed up and left the next day? They
had a meeting Thursday morning after our commission meeting Wednesday night, and they left town. They did not attend the meeting. It's unclear where this is going to go at this point. I had talked to John Albright, who's the president of Consolidated Tomoka. He said they had expressed to him some serious concerns about doing business in Daytona Beach. That if they were going to be treated like this during the purchase on items that weren't even up for consideration by the city, then how would they know that they would be treated fairly if they actually made a $5 million investment into the community? So, and I got to be honest, I don't blame them.
Who are the local people that are interested?
I don't think it's much of a secret. So, but Kevin Bowler,
yeah,
and everybody knows him from all of his support with Father Lopez High School and the Boys and Girls Clubs. Randy Dye, with the Dodge dealership. And there are 2 or 3 other folks that I'm not certain, but Randy and Kevin seem to be the leaders of that initiative to try and really make sure that the right investment happens at that facility, not only for the good of the facility and the residents and the members, but also because of the relationship with the LPGA Tour and doing what we need to do to make sure that they don't choose to move to a different community.
Well, when they cut the deal and they moved here, we had a tournament for a couple of years. A lot of people in the community participated as volunteers. We did broadcasts from there. I mean, people put their effort into it, and then that went away. Was it because we couldn't get a national television contract, or there weren't enough star players? What happened?
So
this is the early '90s.
Yes, it is, and I actually I had moved from here in '80 and came back in '96, so I wasn't here at the time.
Okay.
But it was it was a big tour event. It was an LPGA tour event with the big name lady golfers. I believe it was the Sprint Championship.
Yes.
And I think what happened was Sprint pulled out as a title sponsor, and they couldn't find a replacement, so the tournament was no longer held.
I don't even know if they moved that tournament somewhere else. I know that ladies professional golf is viable, but we were also told they didn't have enough stars, and they didn't use what I call the NASCAR formula for going out and touching the fans, and that's important if you're trying to build up fan loyalty.
Absolutely, and there was the commissioner right now is Michael Wan, brilliant guy, and he has done amazing things with the tour. But they had gotten to a point where I think they had kind of grown more than they should have, and they had too many events, and it diluted the quality of the product somewhat. And I think they've gotten back to their roots a little more, and it's great golf. I mean, I'll be flipping channels, and I'll end up sitting there for 30 minutes watching it. It's fun to watch. They're extremely talented. There's a lot of name recognition out there now. It is kind of interesting that they have such a large Southeast Asian participation, but yet this whole thing happens with this Chinese company buying LPGA as not being worthy. I'm not sure I understand. I'm sure there's no connection there because the tour was actually getting some very nice, benefit from the agreement changes. They were going to get, it was going to be quantified in the agreement how many free days they got to use the facility for their purposes. Some deed restrictions on their office building were being removed. Unfortunately, when this whole thing went south, those two things that would benefit the tour, also were not considered.
Part of the deal, too, I understand, was $1 a round was supposed to come to the city with a guarantee of what, $70,000 a year?
That is correct. It's so our deal with them when we sold out our rights in February 2017, I think it was.
That's when Consolidated took it.
Yes. And let's not forget that the city built the first course and lost $1 million running it.
Yeah.
And threw our hands up, and and Bill McMunn was running Consolidated at the time, and Bill cut what was really a terrible deal from Consolidated, where they agreed to build the second golf course, the clubhouse, the cart barn, make all these additional improvements, pay for it, over $10 million, and then gift it all to the city and pay the city rent. Because they'd had these grand plans for $1 million homes and golf resorts and things like that just never came to fruition. In the end, people don't want McMansions anymore. More people are interested in smaller homes with less maintenance, and we worked with Consolidated for a number of years to try and make sure that the city didn't end up being the owner out there because we simply could not afford to run it. And here's where we are today.
Kind of concerned, what's in it for Kevin and Randy to get into the golf business when it's declining? Are you worried or concerned at all that if they end up being the guys buying it, what's to stop them from turning around and trying to do what they're trying to do at Indigo and say, there's more money in building houses than there is in golf?
So if anybody wanted to build houses out there, they would have to come to the commission and go through a rezoning process. And I think it's pretty unlikely that the commission would agree to any rezoning. So the odds of that either golf course being developed with residential or some other use, commercial use, I know those guys well enough that I understand why they're doing this, and it really is, almost a charitable event, act on their part, to benefit Daytona Beach. You have, the LPGA Tour is an international brand. It's known in, probably over 100 countries, and it is something that's very well respected. And I believe that they, a lot of their desire to go forward with this acquisition is to ensure that the LPGA Tour stays in Daytona Beach.
But I don't think they're going into this for altruism. They're business people. They want to make a buck.
They are, but they are also, and I can speak to Kevin more than anybody else, but he made an enormous donation to Father Lopez to make sure that got built. Remember Walmart bought the old site over there off Nova, and there were a bunch of donors, and Kevin made a commitment to a very large sum to make sure that school was built. And it wasn't for any real benefit of his own. It was to benefit the community. And, one of the things when you're looking at economic development, and Kevin, actually, I talked to him last week, and, he brought this up, and I agree with him. When you're looking at businesses, white-collar businesses, you want to relocate. People complain about the jobs we bring here because, there's management positions, but there's a lot of minimum wage and part-time jobs. When you're looking at white-collar businesses and relocating to Daytona Beach, they're going to look at the school systems. They're going to look at the school availability, and you look at a B school system, and
not so much.
You're not going to get any points for that, But you turn around and look at an exceptional educational institution like Father Lopez, and you are going to get some benefit to that. But Kevin, like I said, he is his saying is that let's see if I can remember what it is. It's like to those who much is given, much is expected.
Yeah.
And he is absolutely living that. So
the golf course itself needs a lot of work. I mean, the golf paths need. I mean, you've got uneven surfaces. You've got greens that need to be. They're gonna have to put money into this.
My guess is that whoever got in there was gonna have to put in $500,000 up front just to get started.
Yeah.
I think the roof on the clubhouse has to be replaced, and that's going to be a couple $100,000 perhaps. It's a big roof, lots of peaks and valleys, and it was. I brought this up at the commission meeting when we were talking about the deal to revise that 3-party agreement, and I was in there last December, and there were the roof in the pro shop was leaking in 20 different places. There's trash cans and buckets everywhere. It's coming out of the light sockets, and I mean, it needs the cart paths fixing them. Those would be great. They got some immediate need that needs to go. It needs to be addressed now, and that's what CBIG said they were going to do. I'm sure that's what Kevin and and his crew were going to do, and we'll see. I think that they're trying to salvage that CBIG agreement. And then I think that there were other parties that the broker knew of that were interested that might come back to the table. But at this point, it's Consolidated is going to do what's in the best interest of their shareholders.
Does the city have any responsibility right now to do anything?
No. We have a right, which is we're owed $70,000 a year for the next 8 years. But beyond that, the 4 items that were coming to us was to change the payer of that $70,000 from Consolidated to CBIG.
Did CBIG not know this was part of the deal?
Oh yeah, they did. Okay. They did. And actually, what we did was we continued the item until our August 7th meeting, and I made the motion to do that because that was a legitimate legal purpose for the continuance, because there was concern about CBIG's financial wherewithal and ability to repay that fund, that money.
But when was their closing scheduled?
It was going to happen before August 7th.
Yeah. So by scheduling the meeting on August 7th, you kind of like overshot the target. Didn't that box them in and say, well, I guess what's not happening?
It was going down last Wednesday, a week ago. It was not going to pass. Commissioner Delgado was not at the meeting. It was fairly clear that Commissioner May and I were going to vote based on the 4 items that were in front of us. Based on the commentary out of Commissioner Henry, Mayor Henry, and Commissioner Traeger, I'm fairly confident they were all no votes.
Yeah.
Not because of anything related to the agreement, but for other reasons. And Commissioner Reed actually was keeping her cards close to the vest. But without Delgado there, a 3-3 is it doesn't pass.
Okay.
So I thought that the safest thing to do, since I saw a legitimate purpose in continuing it to the 7th, was let's do that. Let's see if they can, if some kind of a deal can be cut. I don't think that the locals are out of it, but I don't know where Consolidated would go.
Okay. We know that they were going to, and I know I have a break coming up, so I'll just sort of wrap this by asking these questions. $3.6 million is what CBIG was going to pay. That's 2.4 times the amount that Consolidated paid the city, which was 1.6.
You're listening to the News Journal editor in Texas.
Is that wrong?
That is wrong.
Okay, help me.
That was not in the article when Clayton wrote the article. When he wrote the article and sent it off to Texas for editorial review, they took out a bunch of stuff and they added that.
So that's not right?
Clayton told me that.
Okay.
Now, we're getting $2.2 million, plus there was about $300,000 or $400,000 worth of maintenance that the city was responsible for that Consolidated paid for. So we're in the 2.5, 2.6 range. Consolidated owned the clubhouse, the kitchen, the banquet room, all the food and beverage. So in the end, the 3.6, after you pay a brokerage fee of say 10%, you're down at 3.3.
10% is the brokerage fee?
Brokerage fees are there. It's not like buying a house where you're paying 6. It's more.
Oh, jeepers.
You can, big deals, you can negotiate that down some, but it's not uncommon. I mean, maybe it's 5, but it'll be in that 5 to 10% range. And this is not a giant dollar amount. My guess is that it would be probably close to 10.
Okay.
But that puts them at 3.3. What we got out of it was 2.5, 2.6. So what Consolidated was getting was, about $700,000, $800,000 for the sale of what they owned, which was the clubhouse, the kitchen, the restaurant. Actually, we have the restaurant. We have that one little piece on the outside, but everything else belongs to them.
They're hemorrhaging.
That was they.
According to this, they're hemorrhaging.
They are hemorrhaging. John told me, I've had 20 conversations with people about this thing over the last week, and he in a comment of despair, I don't think he actually meant this, that he wishes he just would have bankrupted the thing years ago.
Wow. Well, yeah, he's a smart business guy.
Yeah, they would have saved them a lot of money had they just pulled the plug on it 10 years ago.
Along with Daytona Beach City Commissioner Rob Gilliland, we're talking about some city issues, and if you'd like to speak with the commissioner, phone lines are open as a backup to you at 386-239-0033. Just to stay with golf for a bit more, you and I spoke about a week ago about the city's golf experience in the golf club, and you kind of surprised me with how direct you were in your answer, saying, I think the city needs to get out of the golf business. Do you recall that exchange?
Yeah.
Okay. Why is it still in the golf business?
We look at it as a leisure service. It's a park basically for us, and if we can break even out there, then we're content. There were a lot of years where we were not breaking even. We ended up having to outsource our golf course maintenance to the company's Brightview now, and it saved us a significant amount of money. But this is one of those things that you got to be careful if you want to get in the golf business. Is you need to be able to buy things at a competitive rate. Fertilizer, mowers, things like that. You're a big giant company like Club Corp that ran LPGA for a number of years. You're going to be able to buy things for 25% cheaper than the city can when we have 2 golf courses.
Yeah.
We've tried to set up little consortiums with the other public courses around here, like Riverbend or Cypress Head. And because they have management companies, it doesn't quite work out. But we're breaking even. We're actually making an investment out there right now. We've got the north course closed, and we're rebuilding the greens. Just this week, they actually started putting down the new sprigs that will be the putting surface come October. And it's going to be a great facility. And with what's going on right now, you got Tomoka Oaks closed, Indigo closed, Pelican Bay South closed, and Daytona North closed. Now, Pelican Bay South and Daytona North are supposed to reopen in the fall. Daytona North will. Pelican Bay supposedly, we'll see.
Is that city? Daytona North, or is that somebody else?
That Daytona North. So the Daytona Beach Golf Club, there are two golf courses there, the North Course and the South Course.
Oh, okay.
So we're rebuilding the greens on the North Course, so it's
Now I
closed
understand.
till October.
Are you hoping that somebody will take it off your hands? Would you like to sell it?
So we've had a couple of feelers out there for folks to come in and make some changes, go to 18 holes, go to 27 holes. There's a couple of proposals that were put forward. I talked to I don't want to name him because I don't have his permission to name him, but a local known real estate developer, and said, look, if we were able to, if we gave you the golf courses and we wanted you to build an entry road off of Bevel instead of where it is off of Wilder and in a new clubhouse, but you could have the rest of the property and could develop everything but 18 holes, would that work for you, including the Bevel road frontage? And he said, if you gave it to me, I couldn't develop it and make any money.
Really?
Yeah. So I mean,
Wow.
it's a bad location for commercial development. It's not a great location. Fairway Estates is a very nice community. I'd like to live in there. But you get down off of US 1 and it's it's Beirut.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
but I'm fine with the city getting involved with these sort of private sector type businesses for a period of time, but I don't think you should stay in them. We've got Halifax Harbor Marina, we've got the Florida Tennis Center out there on LPGA. We had the LPGA golf courses and the Daytona golf courses. We had 4 golf courses at one point. I just think that the private sector does a better job, with those types of amenities that are available in your community.
Did somebody take USTA off your hands, or is that still yours?
So they had their headquarters here in the downstairs of the building, and they built that was USTA Florida. So USTA, the national guys,
Moved to Orlando.
moved to Lake Nona and built a Taj Mahal tennis facility over there. And what they did was they tried to cut a deal with us a few times. I was in favor of cutting a deal with them, and unfortunately I couldn't get anybody else on my side with
It's
this
like
one.
$800,000 a year, I seem to recall reading. That was costing you.
We were losing. So when Glenn Ritchie was mayor, and I complained about their financial performance, he assigned me the duty of making it better. I'm like thinking, I got to keep my mouth shut.
Yeah.
So, but I got together with Tom Kelly and some other folks, and we talked through a lot of what was going on out there, and it got to where it was very close to breaking even. They have 400 members. I mean, it is a very well utilized facility. They have a number of tennis tournaments, including a couple of professional tennis tournaments. And, it really is a nice asset in our community.
So it's still the city's.
But it still belongs to the city.
Are you still losing money?
And at best, we're breaking even out there.
Yeah, because I remember manager Chisholm had something close to happening. Is that what you were talking about?
The USTA, let's see, this is probably 8 years ago.
Yeah.
They offered us $1 million to buy it.
That's what it was.
And we owed $1.6 million. And I said, take it. We're losing $250,000 a year. I said, we can take that. It's out of our hands. They're responsible for the losses. We're on the right side of zero in early in year 3. And he thought it was worth a bunch of money. And he was wrong. So
wow.
He and I argue a fair amount. So that was one of the things we argued about. But
I'm going to talk about Beach Street in a moment, but let me ask you, because I have heard nothing for a few months about what's going to happen on East International Speedway, where that roundabout's going to be. Are we still 3 to 4 years away from seeing any ground break?
So the design phase of that is about 2 years. And the reason is that you've got to do a whole lot of surveying, the actual design work, and then you've got to put it together in a way you can put it before a judge and say, we need to use eminent domain to take some frontage on the north side of the road. And the plans have to be done in a very particular way to make sure the judge will agree that, yes, this is needed for the project. We had a meeting. There's a work group, and I represent the commission on that work group. The manager, there's some stakeholders around town, DOT attends, and we have agreed upon a profile of what it will look like. The initial profile was not very good, and it had like a 1 foot strip of grass on one side of the road. And like, what good does that do anybody? So the city came up with a few good ideas, a few too expensive ideas. DOT took a look and incorporated as much of the city staff comments as they could. I'll give you an example. They're going to take the bike lane off of the street and widen the sidewalk and make it a multi-use path. So it actually will give you an extra foot by doing it that way, which it doesn't sound like a lot, but you pick up a foot here and a foot there. Next thing you know, you can plant trees instead of having 1 foot of grass.
Okay.
But it's still, we're probably 18 months from the design being done. So it is going to be a 4-year project by the time it's finished.
If they use eminent domain, the properties on the east side of A1A are hotels that will encroach upon their footprint, will it not?
So the intersection of A1A and ISB, the city has purchased both corners. So we own that. What will happen is
on the west side.
On the west side. So the road will jog to the west just a tiny bit. So it's coming in and it'll move west, and then you'll hit the roundabout.
Okay.
So that it won't need to do anything with the two hotels on the east side.
Okay. Are you still okay with this idea? Since it's the main entrance to the beach, I have trepidation.
So there's been a lot of concern about different things, different effects it could have. What would it do to the beach approach?
Yeah.
We wanted to make sure
move
that.
It?
Well, no. The reality is, talking with George Rechtenwald, that beach approach is closed by 10, 11 o'clock every weekend morning in the summertime and every holiday because the beach is full. So what they're actually trying to do is incorporate into this better electronic message centers to let people know which approaches are open and how to get there. So, there was always this concern that traffic could back up from the approach into the traffic circle.
That's the worry I have.
And, when the county got in and really looked at the volume and the counts of people that were getting onto the beach at that approach, and it wasn't anything that really would have resulted in that kind of backup.
Okay. I mean, there's no other way. You go straight to A1A unless you can get that traffic to veer off. But well before that, you're still going to have people lined up, aren't you?
The approach is going to be closed. So there won't be able to go down there.
Right.
Because, there's no way to get on the beach.
But people aren't going to know it's closed until they're on top of it.
The county seems to believe that won't be a concern.
Okay.
I try and be careful about playing in other people's sandboxes.
Yeah.
So
well, it's your city, though.
It is my city, and that's why I asked a lot of questions. And I ended up talking to Rechtenwald, the county manager.
I like Rechtenwald
about it. I do too. I think he's great. And I remember it was 5 years ago he started working on this ambulance issue, and I think he was like the public safety director or something.
Yeah,
back
it was.
Then. It's funny that here we are 5 years later, and we're finally seeing some it's getting some traction, and Ed Kelly and the other folks on the county council are behind what he's trying to do.
Let's talk about Beach Street. The story was in the paper today. Tammy Kaczynski, who's one of the owners of Sweet Marley, she and her husband, they've had a tough go. Those people on Beach Street, God love them. They've stuck with it. Now the traffic pattern will go from 4 lanes to 2. 50 additional spaces is what the News Journal reported this morning. Probably going to be slight interruption when this thing starts in November. But think about this, Rob. You've had the Orange Avenue Bridge thing, which has taken forever. We'll be lucky if we're not retired by the time it seems that thing's finished. And now this. What do you think? Is this going to be good?
So I am neutral on whether it'll be good. I'm not a fan of the 1 lane with parking because, and what they're trying to accomplish is to keep it from being a thoroughfare to being targeted to people that are looking to eat or shop.
A destination. A
destination, exactly. And from that standpoint, I believe that this plan will achieve that. I think there's one thing worth pointing out here, because we've been hearing this a lot. When we rebuilt Orange Avenue from Nova East, there were a lot of terrible delays in there. And even though they did a block at a time, the problem we had out there was that the utilities that we were also replacing were buried in the center of the street. So you had to close it curb to curb for the entire block while you were working on it. They were finding wooden water pipes down there that were 100 years old.
You kidding?
It was insane, the things they were finding. I thought they might find another mammoth, to tell you the truth. But they were, it was a very, very different project. What they're going to do in this case is they're breaking it up into 6 segments, and they're going to do one at a time, so you won't have these massive closures like you did on Orange Avenue. That will help the traffic disruption. There will still be traffic disruption. So, it's going to be interesting to see what Beach Street looks like in about 3 years, because, the park will be done, the Brown, office building will be done, this will be completed, hopefully the bridge will be done, maybe,
Yeah. Talking about at least another year and a half?
On the bridge?
Yeah.
Yeah. Once again, it's a county project. I'm not exactly sure what happened there. Yeah, there were some hurricane issues, but
I mean, they told me they had a performance bond. That's supposed to keep everybody honest, but jeepers.
Yeah, I think that kicks in sometime this fall.
The
But
performance bond?
yeah, so there'll be a fine that the builder has to pay, per day, after they hit a certain date, which is sometime later this year. I can't remember when exactly it is. Once again, it's a county project. The city and the county worked together on getting citizen input to make sure it was something that was going to be, not plain, something that would be notable in the community. And I think that Josh Wagner was on the county council at the time, and Kelly White was leading it from the city's perspective, and they got a lot of good citizen input. And I love the design. I think it's great. And it is Veterans Memorial Bridge, and what they're doing to build in that veteran connection is awesome.
To me, this is a fun interview with Rob Gilliland, Daytona Beach City Commissioner, because he's very knowledgeable on a lot of different topics, so I'm able to cover a lot of city business all at one shot. I know this is out of your zone, but you're very much an all-inclusive type of commissioner. What can you tell us about the status of the Russian project? We know one project's been shut down. The other, I think, is continuing, correct?
So the southern portion, which is the hotel, that piece is still plugging along. The northern part was going to be a combination of hotel and condo, and then they decided to go total condo and stopped work on it to do some redesign, and it has stalled at that point for some reason. Condo per square foot prices in Volusia County are getting close to the highest they've ever been, but it's still not enough to cover construction costs. So I suspect they're kind of just, biding their time, waiting for the market to continue to climb, so that they can, do it and make a return on their investment. But I do believe that the hotel is going to continue to move forward at not a great pace, but it's going to continue to move forward and open probably in a year.
Rob, I used to hear that certain projects, once they were zoned and they were approved by the commission, you had a window of opportunity to do it. Otherwise, you have to come back and ask for permission again. Is that what's going to happen with the Russian project?
Well,
Could that
so
happen?
the trigger on a development agreement is what you're talking about. So that's
Yes.
a negotiation between the city. It's a contract. The city and the developer agree on certain things that are going to happen, and one of those is the timing. And sometimes the timing is something that's out in the future. Landshark and Cosina 214.
Yeah.
That's going to be a 20-year project. They know the condo market won't be back. This is a consolidated Tomoka project. They know it won't be back. They built those restaurants to got them tied into 10-year leases. They'll reevaluate in 10 years, see if it's worth moving forward or not. But they got their entitlements. Other times it's shorter. We usually don't go shorter than 5 years, because to get all your engineering design work, generally you have your financing together, but you're not starting sales. We wait until we need to give them enough time to make sure the project is viable. In the case of the Russian project, them starting construction triggered the permanency of their entitlements. So if they were to stop building, let's say they went into bankruptcy. God, I hate to even say that out loud.
Yeah.
But if they did that, it could be sold at auction, and I can't tell you exactly what their agreement says, but in all probability, a new builder could come in, buy it, and just take over from where they are.
Okay. Let me back into your zone. Margaritaville. Mm-hmm. You were publicly commented as being very disappointed when part of the deal fell through, and I think it's tied largely to impact fees, where the developer was going to do the next. I mean, eventually you're going to have 6,000 homes out there. They were saying, wait a minute, we're not going to pay $20 million. And so the thing kind of got shut down. Isn't that the essence of it?
So there were two phases. Phase one is still moving along much faster than they thought it would. I believe the total number of homes in there was 3,400.
And they're selling one a day, I was told last night.
It's probably at least that. They sold 500 the first year. They average more than one a day. It's doing great. And, Minto is very happy with the success they've had there. What happened with phase two was very complicated. There's that weird utility agreement we have with Ormond Beach. So
they service it.
Yeah, the northern part of phase two would be serviced by Ormond Water and Sewer, but you'd get your bill from Daytona Beach. That agreement really, it was contemplated, was put in place assuming the construction would start at Granada and go south. In the Margaritaville project, it was going to start at the south and go north. Now all of a sudden you've got monstrous infrastructure costs that you don't have any way to pay for. And then when you start hitting the Ormond piece of it, because this was sort of a settlement of a lawsuit with the Ormond deal. They felt like Consolidated should have annexed that property into Ormond. That was part of their master plan for utilities. In the end, this was sort of the best deal that could be struck. I've actually, had a very high-level conversation with Joyce about maybe we need to relook at this thing because it's turning out to be a disincentive for investment. But
You've talked to Joyce Shanahan?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and she didn't agree or disagree. She played the card exactly the way she should have,
yes.
Which is, oh, that's interesting, Rob. But I made it known that this is, it's something we need to look at. But at this point, maybe we don't. There's a new company that has the northern part under contract. They're out of Jacksonville. The company name is Greenpoint.
They picked up what was dropped?
Yes. And they are going to start at Granada and go and move to the south.
No kidding.
And they're going to drop it from, I think, 3,200 homes to about 3,100. They're going to do about 2/3 age restricted like Margaritaville and about 1/3, so that'd be about 1,000 homes that won't be age restricted, 2,000 homes that would be. And as I said, start at Granada and go south, and that will actually minimize to an extent the financial consequences of that utility agreement, because we would pay Ormond what they would get, what they need.
Cost.
We would basically, but we would be responsible for the maintenance, but we would get no revenue.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's where the whole deal gets, sour with that utility agreement. But Ormond's our neighbor. We don't want to do anything that's going to hurt them. They don't want to do anything that's going to hurt us. We just need to.
Yeah.
Now that we're here and there's stuff going on, we need to make sure we're both pulling on the same end of the rope.
Well, this reminds me of the old Hunter's Ridge problem years ago. This might have been right around when you came back, where they weren't sure if they were going to be in Flagler or in Volusia because it was right on the line. Mm-hmm. Here you have two municipalities. Given the fact, this is just a hunch, pretty astute that you met with Joyce, because I'm thinking, given the fact they lost the hospital to this city, they're smarting and need to show that they can pick up the ball and run with it. It would be perfect if they would annex into Ormond. Wouldn't that just solve a lot of this problem? Part of it annexes into Ormond.
Well, then you got part of your development in Ormond and part of it in Daytona. So that doesn't work right. Plus the land's owned by Consolidated, and
wouldn't it be up to them to make the appeal? Well, they're under contract.
If they want it, they're under contract. So, the motivation for them to do that kind of doesn't exist at this point. Now it's not sold. It's under contract. But this is a company that has a lot of track record and very successful.
That's actually Daytona Beach city property. It's not county. It's not Daytona County.
That is Daytona Beach city limits.
Wow.
Is that
all of that area?
That whole area, all the way up to Granada.
That's kind of it makes it look like it's on you guys to provide that infrastructure.
Well, and that's where that utility agreement came from. To try and work a deal with Ormond, because they had expected, they built capacity to provide utilities there. They had planned on that investment, And we didn't want to leave them hanging over that whole thing.
Okay, well, who's going to get the revenue for water and sewer once it's all built? It's Orman, right?
So about the northern third of this Greenpoint property would be serviced by Orman, and then I think it's about where the debarkation line is. And then the southern 2/3 would be serviced by Daytona, which would be coming up through Margaritaville.
Okay.
But there's also utility costs associated with that, because to maintain water pressure, we need a 2 million gallon storage tank. There's a bunch of other things that we need to make sure that it works right, which the developer has to pay for.
Didn't this come up at planning board meetings or any of this?
So planning board looks at things like density and uses. They don't get into the utility aspect of it.
What about the comp plan? Didn't the comp plan come up for review?
So in the comprehensive land use management plan, this was agricultural property, and it had been changed to primarily residential. There is some commercial use in there as well. And, it was, nobody envisioned somebody showing up and wanting to build 10,000 homes between LPGA and Granada.
Doesn't that weigh in on concurrency? Isn't that part of what concurrency is all about today?
It is, and that's part of this deal is the county got right-of-way for connecting Tournament Drive from where it ends right now at Champion Elementary all the way to Granada. They just got the right-of-way. And then under the original Margaritaville deal, where they were doing both phases, they were going to build Timber Creek all the way up about 50 feet short of making it connect, because they were afraid of a concurrency issue there. So they were going to dump it on somebody like us or Orman to build the 50 feet so we made the connection.
Man.
So, but it's, nobody ever imagined that somebody would show up and build, between, Mosaic is 1,100 homes. You've got, another, 6,500 there. That's 7,600 homes.
I got an idea. Maybe you've already done this, so bear with me. How about a joint meeting of the Ormond Beach and Daytona Beach City Commission? Both managers present, both commissions. Advertise it. It's a public meeting for that one issue.
The utility agreement?
Yeah.
Well, I think we're close to working it out. And now that the development is starting at Granada and going south, then it is not as problematic as if it started at the southern line and went north.
Okay.
So, and
because it sounds like a wonderful development.
So it is. And I'll tell you, your idea could still be viable. And where that'll come in is when they really start crunching the numbers. Where phase 2 fell apart for Margaritaville was they were going to sell 2,200 square foot homes for $400,000.